The morning rush at Terra's table was always a symphony of controlled chaos. Marcus Vale moved behind the counter with practiced efficiency, his hands working automatically as he prepared orders for the diverse clientele that made Nexus Station their home. Steam rose from freshly brewed coffee while the sweet aroma of baking pastries filled the small cafe tucked into the multicultural district's busiest corner. 2 Earth-style pancakes with real maple syrup for table 7, Marcus called to his serving android, wiping flour from his hands on his apron. The cafe wasn't much to look at, mismatched furniture salvaged from various worlds, walls decorated with faded posters of Earth landscapes, and a menu written in 6 different languages, but it was his dream made manifest. A little piece of home in the vast emptiness of space. The morning crowd thinned as station time shifted toward midday, leaving Marcus with a moment to breathe. He was restocking the display case with fresh chocolate croissants when the door chimed, announcing a new arrival. He glanced up and felt his breath catch in his throat. She was unlike any being he'd encountered in his 3 years on Nexus Station. Tall and willowy, her skin held an ethereal silver luminescence that seemed to shift and shimmer under the cafe's warm lighting. Her hair, if it could be called hair, appeared to be composed of fine crystalline strands that caught and refracted light like a prism. But it was her eyes that held him transfixed, deep violet orbs that seemed to contain entire galaxies, wide with curiosity as she took in her surroundings. She moved with an almost floating grace, her flowing garments rippling like liquid starlight. Every other patron in the cafe had stopped their conversations to stare, but she seemed oblivious to the attention, her gaze fixed entirely on the display case. "May I help you?" Marcus asked, finding his voice. She approached the counter hesitantly, her head tilting in a gesture that was somehow both alien and endearingly familiar. I am not certain," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that made ordinary words sound like music. "My friend Teva said I must try something called chocolate before I leave the station. She said it would change my understanding of flavor." Marcus smiled, charmed despite himself. "Your friend knows what she's talking about. Chocolate is pretty special." He gestured to the display case. "What kind of experience are you looking for? Sweet? Rich? Something more subtle?" She leaned forward, her violet eyes studying the various confections with scientific intensity. "I do not know these terms as they apply to food," she admitted. "My people, the Valani, consume nutrient synthesizers. We do not eat for pleasure, only sustenance." The confession made Marcus's heart ache a little. A life without the joy of taste, without the comfort of a favorite meal or the excitement of trying something new, it seemed impossibly barren. "Well, then we need to make your first experience memorable." He reached into the case and selected a small piece of dark chocolate, placing it on a delicate porcelain plate. "This is 70% cacao from Earth. It's complex, bitter at first, then sweet, with layers of flavor that reveal themselves slowly." She accepted the plate with reverent care, examining the dark square as if it held secrets of the universe. "It appears simple." "The best things often do," Marcus said softly. She lifted the chocolate to her lips and took a small, careful bite. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Her violet eyes widened to impossible proportions, pupils dilating as her silver skin seemed to pulse with brighter luminescence. A sound escaped her throat, not quite a gasp, not quite a sigh, but something between wonder and recognition. The piece of chocolate slipped from her fingers, forgotten, as she pressed both hands to her chest. Her breathing became rapid, shallow, and for a moment Marcus worried she was having some kind of allergic reaction. "Are you all right?" he asked, starting to come around the counter. She held up one trembling hand to stop him, her eyes never leaving his face. What have you done to me?" she whispered, but there was no accusation in her voice, only awe. "I don't understand. Did it taste bad? Some people don't like dark chocolate on their first try." "No," she interrupted, her voice stronger now. It was like awakening. Like discovering I had been living my entire existence with closed eyes." She looked down at the fallen chocolate, then back at him. Is this normal? This feeling? Marcus studied her face, noting the way her skin continued to shimmer, the dilated pupils, the slight tremor in her hands. What exactly are you feeling? She was quiet for a long moment, seeming to search for words. Connection, she said finally. As if that small piece of your world has somehow anchored itself within me. And the one who offered it. She met his eyes directly, and Marcus felt something electric pass between them. I feel as though I have been searching for you my entire life without knowing it. The admission hung in the air between them, charged with possibility and confusion. Marcus had heard of certain species having intense reactions to new sensory experiences, but this seemed beyond anything in his xenobiology studies. What's your name? He asked gently. Zara, she replied. Zara of the Mist Clan, translator for the Galactic Commerce Guild. I'm Marcus Vale, owner of this little establishment. He gestured around the cafe. And I'd very much like to understand what just happened to you. Zara nodded slowly, her gaze never wavering from his face. As would I. But Marcus Vale, I feel I must tell you something important. She paused, her silver skin brightening as if lit from within. I do not think I can leave this place. Not now. Something has changed in me, something fundamental. You're welcome to stay as long as you'd like, Marcus said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. I could show you other Earth foods, help you understand what you're experiencing. Yes, Zara said immediately, then seemed to catch herself. I mean, if it would not be an imposition. I find myself intensely curious about your culture. Your food. Your customs. She paused, a flush of deeper silver spreading across her cheeks. About you. Marcus felt his own cheeks warm at her directness. There was something refreshing about her honesty, her lack of pretense. It wouldn't be an imposition at all. In fact, I'd enjoy the company. The afternoon crowd began filtering in, breaking the intimate bubble that had formed around them. Zara stepped back from the counter, but her eyes remained fixed on Marcus as he worked, studying his every movement with fascination. When he had a moment between orders, she approached again. The chocolate, she said quietly. Could I try another piece? A different kind? Marcus smiled, already reaching for the milk chocolate. Of course. But first, tell me about your people, the Valani. I want to understand why this is affecting you so strongly. As he prepared another small plate, Zara began to speak, her melodic voice weaving tales of a crystalline world where her people lived in harmony with singing stones and light-filled caverns. She described a culture built on logic and efficiency, where emotions were considered interesting but ultimately unnecessary complications. We live long lives, she explained, accepting the new piece of chocolate. Sometimes over 1,000 of your Earth years. But we rarely form deep connections with others. It is not our way. She bit into the milk chocolate, and again her entire being seemed to light up from within. This time, however, she maintained her composure, though her hands trembled slightly as she set down the plate. But this, she continued, her voice thick with emotion, this awakened something I didn't know existed within me. And sharing it with you. She trailed off, shaking her head in wonder. What? Marcus prompted gently. I have been a translator for 50 years, Zara said. I speak 47 languages, understand the customs of dozens of species. But I have never felt truly connected to any of them. Until now. Until you offered me a simple gift without expecting anything in return. The honesty in her words made Marcus's chest tight. It wasn't really a gift. You're a customer. No, Zara interrupted, her violet eyes intense. You saw someone curious and eager to learn, and you chose to share something precious from your world. That is a gift, Marcus Vale. And I find myself wanting to give you something in return. What would that be? Zara was quiet for a moment, then smiled, the first full smile he'd seen from her, transforming her ethereal features into something breathtakingly beautiful. My time. My company. My eagerness to learn everything you would teach me about your world, your food, your customs. She paused, then added more softly, perhaps even about yourself. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. I'd like that very much. As the day wore on, Zara remained in the cafe, moving to a corner table where she continued to watch Marcus work. Every so often, he would bring her small samples, a bite of apple pie, a sip of hot chocolate, a taste of vanilla ice cream. Each new flavor seemed to deepen whatever was happening to her, and Marcus found himself increasingly drawn to her wonder, her genuine joy in discovery. When evening approached and Marcus began closing preparations, Zara approached the counter one final time. Tomorrow, she said, and it wasn't a question. I will return tomorrow. I'll be here, Marcus assured her, already looking forward to it more than he cared to admit. As she turned to leave, Zara paused at the door and looked back. Marcus Vale, I believe your friend was right. This chocolate has indeed changed my understanding. Not just of flavor, but of connection. Of possibility. After she left, Marcus stood alone in his cafe, surrounded by the familiar scents and sounds of his daily routine. But something had shifted, something fundamental. Like Zara, he felt as though he had been awakened to possibilities he hadn't known existed. He looked down at the display case, at the chocolates that had started it all, and smiled. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Zara stood before the mirror in her modest quarters, watching the way her silver skin continued to pulse with an inner light that had not dimmed since yesterday. Among her people, such sustained luminescence was rare, usually occurring only during moments of profound spiritual significance or emotional awakening. Yet here she was, nearly 18 hours after her encounter with Marcus and his chocolate, still glowing like a youngling who had just touched their first singing crystal. She pressed her palms against her cheeks, feeling the warmth that radiated from within. The sensation was entirely foreign. Valani rarely experienced such physical manifestations of emotion. They were a people of cool logic, of measured responses and careful consideration. What was happening to her defied everything she understood about her own nature. Imprinting. The word whispered through her consciousness like a half-remembered melody. It was an ancient concept among her people, spoken of in the oldest texts but rarely seen in modern Valani society. The idea that a sensory experience could be so profound, so overwhelming, that it would create an unbreakable emotional bond with its source. But imprinting was supposed to happen with sacred objects, with the resonant crystals of their homeworld, with places of power and significance. Not with food. And certainly not with an alien she had just met. Zara closed her eyes and allowed herself to relive the moment. The chocolate melting on her tongue, the explosion of flavors she had no words for, the way every cell in her body had suddenly come alive with sensation. And Marcus, the way he had watched her with such gentle concern, such genuine care for her experience. The memory made her skin brighten again, and she felt that same pull, that same desperate need to return to his presence. Terra's table. Even the name felt like a prayer on her lips. She arrived at the cafe before it opened, standing outside the darkened storefront like a pilgrim at a shrine. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see Marcus moving about inside, preparing for another day. The sight of him, his brown hair catching the artificial morning light, his careful attention to each task, sent warmth cascading through her system. He noticed her and smiled, that same genuine expression that had disarmed her yesterday. He approached the door and activated the opening mechanism. "You're early," he said, but his tone was pleased rather than annoyed. "I could not sleep," Zara admitted, following him inside. "My thoughts were occupied." Marcus glanced at her as he moved behind the counter, and she saw his eyes widen slightly. "You're glowing," he observed. "More than yesterday." Zara looked down at her hands, watching the silver light pulse beneath her skin. "It is complicated. Among my people, sustained luminescence indicates a significant emotional state." "What kind of emotional state?" Marcus asked, beginning his morning preparations. There was curiosity in his voice, but also something else, concern, perhaps even care. Attachment, Zara said quietly. Deep, meaningful connection to something or someone. The admission hung between them as Marcus worked, and Zara found herself studying his every movement with an intensity that should have embarrassed her. Instead, it felt natural, necessary even. She needed to understand him, to learn every detail of his expressions and gestures. Zara, Marcus said gently, pausing in his work. Yesterday, when you tasted the chocolate, you mentioned feeling connected. What did you mean exactly? She moved closer to the counter, drawn by an invisible force. Among the Valani, we have a concept called Velthara, soul bonding. It happens rarely, and usually with sacred objects or places that resonate with our life energy. The bonded individual becomes protective, devoted. They cannot bear to be separated from the source of their imprinting. Marcus set down the container he'd been holding, giving her his full attention. And you think that's what happened to you? With the chocolate? Not with the chocolate, Zara corrected, her violet eyes meeting his. With you. The chocolate was merely the catalyst. You were the one who offered it, who shared something precious from your world with a stranger. The act of generosity, the kindness in your eyes, the way you wanted me to experience joy. She paused, her skin brightening. It awakened something in me that I didn't know existed. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign that he was processing complex emotions. What does this mean for you? He asked finally. This, bonding? I don't know, Zara admitted. It has never happened to someone of my generation, and certainly never with someone from another species. The old texts speak of the bonded becoming guardians, companions, devoted to ensuring the well-being of their focus. Their focus? You, she said simply. You are my focus now, Marcus Vale. Everything in me is oriented toward your presence, your happiness, your safety. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, and Zara held her breath, waiting for rejection, for fear, for the reasonable response of someone confronted with such an intense declaration from a virtual stranger. Instead, he said, that sounds lonely. Being so devoted to someone who might not understand or return those feelings. The unexpected compassion in his voice made Zara's chest tight with emotion. Perhaps. But it also feels like, coming home. Like finding a missing piece of myself I never knew was gone. Marcus nodded slowly, then made a decision that would change both their lives. Would you like to help me open the cafe today? I could teach you about Earth foods, about human customs around hospitality and connection. You would trust me with your livelihood? Zara asked, surprised. I would trust you with much more than that, Marcus said quietly. If you're willing to learn. The morning rush became Zara's first lesson in human social dynamics. She watched Marcus interact with customers, the way he remembered their usual orders, asked about their families, created small moments of connection that brightened their days. She began to understand that his cafe was more than a business, it was a gathering place, a source of comfort and community. Food is love made visible, Marcus explained during a brief lull, showing her how to properly foam milk for coffee. When we feed someone, we're caring for them in the most basic, essential way. Zara absorbed this concept, turning it over in her mind. Is this why your offering of chocolate affected me so deeply? Because it was an act of love? Marcus paused in his demonstration, meeting her eyes. Maybe. I know I wanted you to experience something beautiful, something that would bring you joy. If that's love. He shrugged, but his cheeks reddened slightly. As the day progressed, Zara found herself naturally falling into the rhythm of the cafe. Her enhanced hearing allowed her to catch orders from across the room, and her graceful movements made her surprisingly effective at serving customers. More importantly, she discovered that helping Marcus, contributing to his dream, felt deeply satisfying in a way that nothing in her previous life had. You're a natural at this, Marcus said as they worked together to prepare afternoon pastries. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same utensil, and Zara felt that familiar surge of warmth and connection. "It feels right," she said. "Being here, working beside you. As if this is what I was meant to do." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, and Zara marveled at how natural it felt to be in sync with another being. Every movement complemented his, every action anticipated his needs. It was like a dance they had been practicing their entire lives. The afternoon brought a new challenge in the form of Yarrick, a regular customer who had clearly noticed the change in cafe dynamics. The burly Centaurian trader lingered after finishing his meal, his 4 eyes studying Zara with obvious interest. "So, Marcus," Yarrick said loudly, "picked up some exotic help, have you? She's certainly decorative." Zara felt Marcus tense beside her, but before he could respond, she stepped forward. Her skin had begun to brighten with protective instincts, and her voice carried a harmonic undertone that hadn't been there before. "I am Zara of the Mist clan," she said, her violet eyes fixed on Yarrick. "I am here by choice, contributing to this establishment because it brings me joy. Your implications are both incorrect and unwelcome." Yarrick blinked, clearly taken aback by her directness and the subtle authority in her voice. "I didn't mean any offense." "Then perhaps you should consider your words more carefully in the future," Zara replied smoothly. "Marcus Vale is an honorable being who treats all customers with respect. I suggest you follow his example." After Yarrick left, Marcus looked at Zara with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Zara said firmly. "The bonding, it makes me protective of you, of your reputation, of anything that brings you happiness." She paused, studying his face. "Does this disturb you? This intensity of devotion from someone you barely know?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, wiping down the counter with unnecessary thoroughness. "It should," he said finally. "It should worry me or make me want to run. But honestly, I've never had someone care about me the way you seem to. It's overwhelming, but not in a bad way. And I have never cared for someone the way I care for you," Zara admitted. "Among my people, such feelings are rare. We live long lives but form few deep connections. This bonding, this Velthara, it's changing me in ways I don't fully understand." "Maybe we can figure it out together," Marcus suggested. "Learn about each other's ways, find a balance between your bonding and my human understanding of relationships." Zara felt her entire being brighten at the suggestion. "You would want this? To explore what exists between us?" "I would," Marcus said, and the sincerity in his voice made her feel as though she could float. "I've been thinking about you since the moment you left yesterday. About your wonder at simple things, your honesty, the way you seem to see straight into the heart of matters." As evening approached and they closed the cafe together, Zara realized that her understanding of connection had deepened beyond even the intensity of her initial imprinting. What had begun as a mystical bonding triggered by sensory experience was evolving into something more complex, more mutual. "Tomorrow," she said as they prepared to part ways, "I would like to bring you something from my world. To share as you shared with me." "I'd like that," Marcus said, and when he smiled, Zara felt her entire being resonate with contentment. Walking back to her quarters, Zara reflected on the day's revelations. The bonding that had seemed so overwhelming and one-sided was beginning to feel like the foundation for something beautiful, a connection that honored both her Valani nature and his human heart. For the first time since the imprinting began, she felt not just devoted, but hopeful. Perhaps this strange, intense connection could become something even more precious, mutual love. Finn Ashworth had known Marcus Vale for 8 years, ever since they'd met during a supply run to the Outer Rim territories. He'd watched his friend dream of opening a little Earth food cafe, had helped him secure the lease on Nexus Station, and had even invested his own savings to make Terra's table a reality. Which was why, standing outside the cafe at dawn and watching a luminescent alien woman arrange flowers with the care of someone who belonged there, Finn felt a knot of concern tightening in his chest. He'd been off station for 2 weeks, handling supply negotiations on Kepler Prime, and had returned to find his business partner's life apparently transformed. The messages Marcus had sent had been brief and vague, mentions of a new helper and interesting developments, but nothing that had prepared Finn for this. The alien woman moved with ethereal grace, her silver skin catching the artificial morning light as she adjusted the placement of exotic blooms in small vases throughout the cafe. She hummed something melodic and haunting, a sound that seemed to resonate in frequencies just beyond human hearing. Everything about her suggested otherworldly beauty and mystery. Everything about her also suggested complication. Finn activated the door chime and entered, causing the woman to look up with eyes like captured starlight. Her smile was polite but guarded, and he noticed the way her luminescence dimmed slightly, a defensive reaction, perhaps. "You must be Finn," she said, her voice carrying that same musical quality he'd heard in her humming. "Marcus has spoken of you often." "I am Zara." "Right," Finn said, looking around the transformed space. The mismatched furniture had been arranged more harmoniously, earth plants he didn't recognize grew in carefully tended pots, and the entire atmosphere felt more alive somehow. "And you are?" "His partner," Zara said simply, then seemed to realize the potential confusion. "In the cafe. I help with the daily operations." Before Finn could respond, Marcus emerged from the kitchen, his face lighting up at the sight of his friend. "Finn. You're back early. How did Kepler Prime go?" "Successfully," Finn said, accepting Marcus's embrace but keeping his eyes on Zara. "We need to talk. Privately." He saw the way Zara's skin brightened with what looked like protective instincts, the way she moved almost imperceptibly closer to Marcus. Whatever was happening here went far deeper than business partnership. "Zara, could you handle the morning prep?" Marcus asked gently. "Finn and I will be in the office." The office was little more than a storage closet with a desk crammed into it, barely large enough for two humans to stand comfortably. Finn closed the door and turned to face his friend. "What the hell, Marcus? What do you mean? Don't play dumb. I leave for 2 weeks and come back to find you've got an alien girlfriend running our cafe like she owns the place. What happened to keeping business and personal life separate?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's not that simple." "It never is," Finn said, running a hand through his graying hair. "Look, I get it. She's beautiful, exotic, probably amazing in bed." "Stop," Marcus interrupted, his voice sharp. "This isn't about sex or fascination with the exotic. What Zara and I have is, it's difficult to explain. Try me." Marcus was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather his thoughts. "She has this thing, a bonding response from her species. When I shared chocolate with her, it triggered something profound. She's imprinted on me, I suppose. But it's not one-sided, Finn. What I feel for her is probably enhanced by her alien pheromones or psychic influence or whatever it is her species does," Finn finished. "Marcus, you've known her for what, 2 weeks? And you're ready to restructure your entire life around her?" "She's not manipulating me," Marcus said firmly. "If anything, she's been completely honest about what's happening to her, about the intensity of her feelings. More honest than most humans would be." Finn sighed, recognizing the stubborn set of Marcus's shoulders. "I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm saying you're in over your head with something you don't understand. Interspecies relationships are complicated under the best circumstances. This bonding thing sounds like it could get messy." "It's not going to get messy." Famous last words. Finn leaned against the wall, studying his friend's face. "What happens when her people find out? When they come looking for her?" "Why would they come looking for her?" "Because she's exhibiting unusual behavior for her species, maybe. Because they don't approve of her bonding with a human." "Marcus, you don't know anything about her culture, her obligations, her family." A soft chime from the main cafe interrupted them, followed by voices speaking in a language that sounded like crystal wind chimes. Marcus and Finn exchanged glances before opening the office door. Zara stood frozen in the center of the cafe, facing a tall, elegant figure who could only be another Valani. This newcomer shared Zara's silver luminescence and crystalline hair, but where Zara's presence felt warm and welcoming, this alien radiated cool authority. Her garments were more formal, adorned with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. "Sister," the newcomer said in accented standard, "you have been absent from your duties for 2 weeks. The guild has grown concerned." "Naya," Zara replied, her voice tight with emotion. "I did not expect you to come personally." "Your behavior required personal attention," Naya said, her violet eyes scanning the cafe before settling on Marcus. "Is this the human responsible for your condition?" Finn saw Marcus straighten, his protective instincts clearly activated. "I'm Marcus Vale, owner of this establishment." "And you are?" "Naya of the Singing Waters clan, elder translator for the Galactic Commerce Guild and Zara's elder sister." Her tone was formal, carrying undertones of disapproval. "I have come to understand why my sister has abandoned her responsibilities and is exhibiting signs of Velthara with an alien." "She hasn't abandoned anything," Marcus said. "She's been helping me run the cafe, learning about human culture." "She has been indulging in an inappropriate fixation," Naya interrupted. "The Velthara is a sacred bond, meant to connect our people with the crystalline consciousnesses of our homeworld. It is not meant for this." Zara's skin flared brighter, and Finn could hear that harmonic undertone entering her voice. "What I feel is not inappropriate. Marcus shared the gift of new experience with me, offered kindness without expectation. The bonding is real and meaningful." "The bonding is a mistake," Naya said firmly. "Our people do not form such attachments with other species. It goes against our nature, our traditions, our very understanding of what it means to be Valani." "Maybe your understanding is incomplete," Marcus said, stepping closer to Zara. Finn noticed how her luminescence steadied at his presence, how some of the tension left her posture. Naya's eyes sharpened as she observed this interaction. "You know nothing of our ways, human. The Velthara can consume those who experience it." Zara could lose herself entirely, become nothing more than a reflection of her fixation. She could cease to be truly Valani. "Or she could become something new," Zara said quietly. "Something that honors both what I was and what I am becoming." The sisters stared at each other, and Finn could feel the weight of centuries of tradition pressing against the moment. He found himself thinking of his own initial reaction to seeing Zara in the cafe, his immediate assumption that this was a temporary fascination that would end badly. "There are others involved here," Finn said, surprising himself by speaking up. "Marcus is my business partner. This affects me too." Naya turned her attention to him, and he felt the full weight of her alien intelligence assessing him. "You oppose this bonding as well?" Finn glanced at Marcus, then at Zara, seeing the way they unconsciously leaned toward each other, the way they seemed to complete some invisible circuit when they were close. "I was concerned," he admitted. "But watching them together. I've never seen Marcus this happy. And Zara isn't some mindless devotee. She's got opinions, personality, strength." "You would support this union?" Naya asked. "I'd support my friend's happiness," Finn said. "And if that means learning to understand alien bonding rituals and dealing with disapproving relatives, then that's what I'll do." Something shifted in Naya's expression, a slight softening around her eyes. "You are more perceptive than I expected, human." "Finn," he corrected. "And you might be more reasonable than you first appeared." Naya moved closer to her sister, studying the constant interplay of light beneath Zara's skin. "Show me," she said quietly. "Show me what has bonded you so completely." Zara looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. She moved to the display case and selected a piece of the same dark chocolate that had started everything. With reverent care, she offered it to her sister. Naya accepted the chocolate with visible skepticism, examining it as Zara had 2 weeks earlier. She took a small, careful bite, and Finn watched her expression change from dismissive to surprised to thoughtful. "It is complex," she admitted. "Rich with meaning and memory." I can taste the earth it grew in, the care with which it was prepared, the intention behind the offering. Now imagine experiencing that for the first time, Zara said. Imagine a lifetime of nutrient synthesizers, of sustenance without joy, and then suddenly discovering that food could be poetry, that sharing a meal could be an act of love. Naya was quiet for a long moment, her own skin beginning to show a faint luminescence. And he offered this freely? Without knowing what it might mean to you? He wanted me to experience something beautiful, Zara said simply. Because kindness is his nature. Naya looked at Marcus with new interest. What do you know of the Velthara, human? Only what Zara has told me, Marcus admitted. That it's a deep bonding, usually with sacred objects or places. That it creates loyalty, protectiveness, devotion. And how do you feel about being the object of such intense focus? Marcus considered the question carefully. Honored, he said finally. Grateful. And increasingly certain that what I feel for Zara goes beyond her bonding response. I think I'm falling in love with her, sister or no sister. Finn saw Naya's surprise at Marcus's directness, saw Zara's skin flare with joy at his declaration. He also saw something else in the elder Villani's expression, recognition, perhaps even approval. Love, Naya repeated, testing the word. This is different from the Velthara. It's mutual, Marcus said. It grows over time, through shared experiences and understanding. It's chosen, not triggered. And you believe you and Zara could achieve this? Despite the differences in your species? We're already achieving it, Marcus said, reaching for Zara's hand. The bonding brought us together, but what we're building is something we're both choosing, every day. Naya watched their joined hands, noting the way Zara's luminescence settled into a steady, warm glow. The Velthara usually burns bright and brief, she said thoughtfully. But yours seems to be, evolving. Stabilizing into something I do not recognize. Maybe because it's not just Velthara, Zara suggested. Maybe it's becoming something new. Finn found himself moved by the obvious connection between them, by their willingness to navigate uncharted territory together. Look, he said, I don't understand alien bonding or interspecies romance. But I understand partnership, commitment, building something together. And that's what I see here. Naya looked at him, then at her sister, then at Marcus. You would all stand together in this? Despite the complications it will bring? Yes, they said simultaneously, and Finn realized he meant it completely. Then perhaps, Naya said slowly, it is time for our people to expand their understanding of what bonds can exist in this wide galaxy. But Zara, if you choose this path, there will be consequences. Our people may not accept a bonding with a human. You may find yourself between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. I already belong to neither, Zara said. I was never fully Valani in the traditional sense, and I will never be human. But with Marcus, with this life we're building together, I can be something new. Something that honors both heritage and choice. As the morning sun filtered through the cafe windows, Finn watched the four of them standing together, 2 humans, 2 aliens, all committed to making something unprecedented work. It would be complicated, certainly. There would be cultural misunderstandings, disapproving relatives, and challenges none of them could anticipate. But looking at Marcus and Zara, seeing the joy and determination in their faces, Finn found himself believing it might just be possible. Love, it seemed, really could bridge any gap, even the space between worlds. Well then, he said, clapping his hands together, I guess we'd better figure out how to plan an interspecies bonding ceremony. This should be interesting. 3 weeks after her arrival on Nexus Station, Naya of the Singing Waters clan found herself in the unprecedented position of planning something that had never existed before, a hybrid bonding ceremony that would honor both Valani tradition and human custom. She sat in Marcus's small apartment, surrounded by data tablets containing research on human marriage rituals, Valani bonding protocols, and station regulations regarding interspecies unions. The complexity was staggering, but what fascinated her more was her own evolution during these weeks of observation. She had come to retrieve her wayward sister and return her to proper Valani society. Instead, she found herself becoming an advocate for something she was only beginning to understand. The resonance crystals arrived this morning, she announced as Marcus and Zara entered from their shift at the cafe. She gestured to a carefully sealed container sitting on the small dining table. These were grown in the sacred caverns of our homeworld, specifically for bonding ceremonies. Zara moved to the container with reverent care, her skin brightening as she approached. You were able to convince the elders to provide them? I was able to convince them that your situation deserved study rather than condemnation, Naya corrected. The Velthara with a non-Valani is unprecedented. Some see it as corruption of our traditions, but others see it as evolution. Marcus settled beside Zara as she opened the container, revealing 3 crystals that seemed to contain captured starlight. They hummed with a frequency that made the air itself seem more alive. They're beautiful, Marcus said softly. What role do they play in the ceremony? Traditional Valani bondings involve the participants placing their hands upon the crystals while speaking their intentions, Naya explained. The crystals resonate with their life energy, creating a harmonic connection that can be felt by all Valani present. If the bonding is true and beneficial, the crystals sing in harmony. And if it's not? Marcus asked. The crystals remain silent, or worse, they produce discordant tones that indicate the bonding would be harmful. Naya paused, studying Marcus's face. There is no precedent for how they will react to human life energy. We are venturing into unknown territory. Finn arrived as they were discussing the human elements of the ceremony, carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing an expression of determined optimism. Over the past weeks, he had become their unofficial coordinator, handling the practical aspects of their unusual situation with surprising grace. I've got good news and complicated news, he announced, setting down the champagne. The good news is that Station Administrator Chen has agreed to officiate the ceremony. The complicated news is that word has gotten out, and we've got interest from xenobiologists, cultural anthropologists, and about a dozen news services. We wanted a small, private ceremony, Zara said, concern evident in her voice. I know, Finn said gently. But what you two are doing isn't just personal anymore. It's historic. The first officially recognized bonding between a human and a Valani. There are going to be implications for interspecies relations across the galaxy. Naya felt a familiar weight settle on her shoulders, the burden of representing her people in an unprecedented situation. The Valani Council has sent observers, she admitted. 3 elders will attend the ceremony. Their assessment will determine whether future human-Valani bondings are accepted or forbidden. The gravity of this revelation settled over the group. What had begun as a personal celebration had become a cultural watershed moment. No pressure, Marcus said wryly, but Zara moved closer to him, her luminescence steadying at his presence. We cannot control the political implications, she said. But we can ensure that our ceremony reflects the truth of what we feel for each other. If the elders see genuine love and mutual respect, perhaps they will understand. Over the next few days, their small planning group expanded to include unexpected allies. Dr. Valdris, a Centaurian xenopsychologist, offered insights into interspecies emotional compatibility. Teva, Zara's friend who had first suggested she try chocolate, provided historical context for Valani bonding traditions. Even Yarrick, the Centaurian trader who had once made inappropriate comments about Zara, appeared at the cafe with an offer to provide exotic flowers for the ceremony. Change of heart? Marcus asked as Yarrick carefully arranged his offering in the cooler. Change of understanding, Yarrick corrected. I watched you two work together, saw how she protects your interests and you respect her autonomy. That's not infatuation or exotic fascination. That's partnership. Naya observed these interactions with growing fascination. The bonding between Marcus and Zara was creating ripples throughout their community, inspiring others to reconsider their assumptions about interspecies relationships. She began to understand that their ceremony would resonate far beyond the individuals involved. The night before the bonding, Naya found herself alone with the resonance crystals, preparing them according to ancient ritual. She cleansed each one with solutions made from waters of their homeworld, spoke the traditional blessings, and attuned them to the cosmic frequencies that her people believed guided all meaningful connections. As she worked, she reflected on her own transformation. 3 weeks ago, she had been a traditional Valani elder, certain of her people's superiority and the correctness of their ancient ways. Now she found herself questioning assumptions she had never thought to examine. The crystals hummed softly as she completed the preparation, their song a complex harmony that spoke of potential and possibility. Whatever happened during the ceremony, she realized, her people would never be quite the same. The morning of the bonding dawned clear and bright, the station's artificial lighting adjusted to simulate the golden hour of sunrise. The ceremony would take place in the observation deck overlooking the nebula that gave Nexus Station its spectacular views, with the swirling cosmic colors providing a backdrop that honored both the mystery of space that humans found inspiring and the light worship traditions of the Valani. Naya arrived early to find the space already transforming. Finn had coordinated with station maintenance to arrange seating that could accommodate various alien anatomies, while Dr. Valdris had provided translation equipment for the multi-species audience that would witness this historic moment. The Valani elders arrived in formal procession, their crystalline garments creating prismatic light displays as they moved. Elder Thrace, eldest of the three, approached Naya with formal courtesy. "Sister of the bonded," he said, using the traditional address. "The crystals." "Prepared according to the ancient ways," Naya replied, presenting the container. "They have been blessed and attuned. The outcome rests with the participants and the wisdom of the cosmos." Elder Thrace examined the crystals with experienced eyes, noting their perfect resonance and preparation. "You have done well, despite the unusual circumstances. We are prepared to witness whatever truth these crystals reveal." As guests began to arrive, Naya was struck by the diversity of beings gathering to witness this moment. Humans from various Earth colonies, Centaurians with their multiple arms adorned with ceremonial jewelry, graceful Delphinians whose translucent forms shimmered in the station's lighting, and dozens of other species, all drawn by curiosity about this unprecedented union. Marcus appeared first, wearing a simple but elegant suit that Finn had somehow procured on short notice. His nervousness was evident in the way he kept adjusting his collar, but his determination shone in his eyes. Then Zara entered, and Naya felt her breath catch. Her sister had chosen to honor both traditions in her appearance, a flowing gown that echoed human bridal customs but was cut from fabric that caught and reflected light in the Valani manner, creating an effect like wearing captured starlight. Her natural luminescence had been enhanced with ceremonial face painting, geometric patterns that told the story of her clan and her personal journey. "Sister," Naya whispered as Zara approached. "You are radiant." "I am terrified," Zara admitted quietly. "What if the crystals remain silent? What if this bonding that feels so right to me is revealed as false or harmful? Then we will deal with whatever truth is revealed," Naya said, taking her sister's hands. "But Zara, I have watched you these past weeks. I have seen how you and Marcus complement each other, how you both grow stronger in the other's presence. That is not false bonding. That is something much rarer and more precious." Administrator Chen called the gathering to order, his voice carrying across the observation deck through the translation system. "We gather today to witness something unprecedented in galactic history, the formal bonding of two beings from different worlds, different species, but united by genuine affection and mutual respect." The ceremony began with traditional elements from both cultures. Marcus spoke vows that echoed human marriage customs but had been adapted to acknowledge the unique nature of their bond. Zara responded with harmonics that conveyed meaning beyond words, her voice carrying undertones that resonated with the Valani observers and created haunting melodies that moved even the non-Valani guests to tears. Then came the moment of truth. Naya stepped forward with the resonance crystals, placing them on a specially prepared altar between the couple. "By the ancient ways of our people," she intoned, "let these crystals judge the truth and value of this bonding. Place your hands upon them together, and speak your deepest intentions." Marcus and Zara approached the altar hand in hand. Zara's luminescence had steadied into a warm, golden glow that seemed to encompass them both. Together, they placed their joined hands upon the largest crystal. "I bind myself to you," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent gathering, "not because of mystical compulsion or exotic fascination, but because you make me a better person. Because your joy in discovery reminds me to see wonder in ordinary things. Because your strength gives me courage to face whatever challenges lie ahead." "I bind myself to you," Zara responded, her harmonic undertones creating complex melodies, "not merely because of the Velthara that brought us together, but because you showed me that kindness needs no reason, that love can bridge any distance. Because with you, I am not choosing between my heritage and my future, I am creating something new that honors both." For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the crystals remained silent. Naya felt her heart's racing as she watched her sister's face, saw the momentary doubt flicker in her violet eyes. Then the crystals began to sing. It started as a single, pure note that seemed to emanate from the largest crystal, then grew as the others joined in. But this was unlike any resonance Naya had ever heard in traditional Valani bondings. The harmony was more complex, richer, with undertones and overtones that spoke of new possibilities and unprecedented connections. The song of the crystals was joined by something even more remarkable: the couple themselves began to harmonize with the crystals. Marcus, despite having no Valani heritage, found his voice blending with the crystal song, while Zara's natural harmonics wove through the melody like silver thread through starlight. The effect on the gathered witnesses was profound. Naya saw tears on human faces, saw centaurians swaying to the rhythm, saw her fellow Valani elders exchanging looks of amazement. This was not just a successful bonding, it was a revelation of what was possible when barriers between species were dissolved by genuine love. The crystal song gradually faded, but the harmony between Marcus and Zara continued for several more moments, their voices creating a melody that seemed to linger in the air like a blessing. Elder Thrace stepped forward, his ancient face showing wonder that Naya had never seen before. "In 8 centuries of life, I have witnessed many bondings," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the observation deck. "I have never heard the crystals sing as they sang today. This bonding is not only accepted, it is celebrated. It shows us new paths forward for our people and our galaxy." The formal ceremony concluded with the exchange of bonding gifts. Marcus presented Zara with a simple golden ring inscribed with words from a dozen human languages meaning love, while Zara gave Marcus a small crystal pendant that would pulse with light whenever she was near, a way of sharing her Valani luminescence with him always. As the witnesses began to disperse, many stopping to offer congratulations and express amazement at what they had experienced, Naya found herself standing with Finn at the edge of the observation deck, looking out at the nebula's swirling colors. "Think it will work?" Finn asked. "Long term, I mean. All the cultural differences, the attention they're going to get, the pressure of being the first." Naya watched Marcus and Zara accepting congratulations from their friends, noting how they moved together as naturally as binary stars in orbit. "I think," she said slowly, "that they have already proven something important. Love does not require the participants to be identical. It requires them to be genuine." "Deep thoughts from someone who came here to break them up," Finn observed with a smile. "I came here expecting to find my sister diminished by inappropriate attachment," Naya admitted. "Instead, I found her expanded, enhanced, becoming more herself than she had ever been before. That is not corruption of our traditions, that is fulfillment of our highest ideals." As the celebration continued around them, Naya reflected on the changes this day would bring. Word of the successful bonding would spread throughout Valani space and beyond. There would be questions, challenges, perhaps even opposition from more conservative elements of her people. But there would also be hope. Hope for other interspecies couples who had hidden their feelings out of fear of cultural rejection. Hope for greater understanding between the diverse species that shared the galaxy. Hope for a future where love truly could conquer the distances between worlds. The crystals had sung their truth: some bonds transcend the boundaries of species, culture, and tradition. Some love is strong enough to create entirely new possibilities for what connection could mean in a galaxy full of different kinds of consciousness. And sometimes, that love begins with something as simple as sharing a piece of chocolate with a stranger. Part 5, Forever Flavors. 6 months after the bonding ceremony that had made galactic history, Marcus Vale stood in the expanded kitchen of Terra's table, watching his bonded partner teach a class of young beings from 7 different species how to make chocolate chip cookies. The sight never failed to fill him with wonder: Zara's natural grace and patience, the way her skin brightened with joy as each student experienced their first taste of properly made earth confections, the harmony of different cultures learning together in their little cafe. The secret, Zara was explaining to a young Delphinian whose translucent form shimmered with excitement, is not just the ingredients, but the intention. When you bake with love, the food carries that emotion to those who taste it. Marcus smiled, remembering when he had first shared that philosophy with her. Now she was passing it on to a new generation, creating ripples of understanding that would spread across the galaxy in ways they could barely imagine. The changes in their lives had been both overwhelming and wonderful. The successful bonding ceremony had indeed made them celebrities of sorts, with requests for interviews, invitations to speak at xenocultural conferences, and offers from documentary makers wanting to chronicle their relationship. More importantly, it had opened doors for other interspecies couples who had been hiding their relationships out of fear of cultural rejection. "Marcus," Finn called from the main dining area, "your 3 o'clock appointment is here." Marcus wiped his hands on his apron and made his way to the front of the cafe, where a nervous-looking human woman sat across from a tall, elegant being with bark-like skin and eyes like deep forest pools, clearly a dendron. They held hands across the small table, but their posture suggested anxiety. "Mr. Vale," the human woman said as he approached. "I'm Sarah Chen, and this is my partner, Thornwick of the Ancient Grove. We sent you a message about consultation." Marcus sat down at their table, immediately understanding their situation. In the months since his bonding with Zara, they had become unofficial counselors for interspecies couples facing cultural or practical challenges. "You're considering a formal bonding ceremony?" "We've been together for 2 years, Sarah explained, while Thornwick's bark patterns shifted in what Marcus had learned to recognize as dendron expressions of deep emotion. "But my family doesn't understand, and his grove kin think he's betraying his connection to the forest worlds. The path of bonding across species is not easy," Thornwick added, his voice carrying the whispered sound of wind through leaves. "But seeing your ceremony, hearing how the crystals sang for you and Zara, it gave us hope that such love could be honored rather than hidden." Marcus felt the familiar warmth of purpose that had become central to his new life. "Let me get Zara, and we'll talk about what worked for us, what challenges we faced, and how we might help you find your own path forward." As he returned to the kitchen to fetch his bonded partner, Marcus reflected on how their personal journey had evolved into something much larger. They weren't just running a cafe anymore, they were facilitating connections, fostering understanding, creating safe spaces for love that transcended traditional boundaries. Zara finished her baking class and joined them, her presence immediately calming the nervous couple. Over the next hour, they shared their experiences, the importance of family support, the need for cultural compromise, the value of having allies who understood both species involved. By the time Sarah and Thornwick left, they were holding hands more confidently, their posture suggesting hope rather than anxiety. "That's the 4th couple this week," Zara observed as they cleaned up after the consultation. "Word is spreading faster than we anticipated. Are you okay with it?" Marcus asked, studying her face. "This wasn't what we planned when we bonded. We just wanted to build a life together." Zara's skin brightened with that warm, steady glow that now meant home to him. "It feels right," she said. "We found something beautiful together, and helping others find the same, it's like sharing the best recipe we know." Their quiet moment was interrupted by the arrival of Naya, who had extended her stay on Nexus Station indefinitely to help coordinate what had become an informal network of interspecies relationship counselors. She carried a data tablet and wore the expression of someone with important news. "The Galactic Council has made a decision," she announced without preamble. The success of interspecies bondings inspired by your ceremony has led them to establish formal protocols for cross-cultural unions. They want to create a new diplomatic position, ambassador for interspecies relations. Marcus and Zara exchanged glances. They had been expecting some kind of official recognition of what they had started, but the scope of this offer was staggering. They want us to take the position? Zara asked. They want you to create it, Naya corrected. Define what it means, establish the protocols, build the support systems. Essentially, they want you to do officially what you've been doing unofficially, help beings from different worlds find love across cultural boundaries. The offer was tempting, but Marcus felt a pang of concern about losing what they had built here. What about the cafe? This community we've created? That would be part of it, Naya said, consulting her tablet. They want to establish Nexus Station as the first official interspecies cultural exchange center, with Terra's table as its heart. You would get funding, resources, official diplomatic status. And bureaucracy, politics, oversight, Finn added, having overheard the conversation. Are you sure you want to turn your love story into a government program? It was a valid concern, but as Marcus looked around their cafe, at the mixed-species couples sharing meals, at the cultural exchange students learning about different worlds through food, at the simple joy of connection that happened here every day, he realized they had already created something too important to keep small. What do you think? He asked Zara, reaching for her hand. Her luminescence pulsed in the pattern that had become their private language of affection. I think we've learned that when something good wants to grow, we should let it flourish. But only if we can do it our way, focused on